But let's be honest. Let's not call Alex Jones and Gavin McInnes. Let's not call them right of center. Let's call them far right, because that's what they are.
Who gives a shit? They got the right to say what they want to say.
Hello, Justin. I know you're listening. How do I know Justin's listening? Because Justin was whining earlier about why I hadn't posted him yet. He said that I was afraid of the facts and logic. So he was whining. Well, here I am, Justin. See how you like me now. Justin's a bit of a liar. Mostly he's lying to himself. He's a class study in what a little bit of knowledge can do to you. He thinks he's real smart. He's not. Says he's middle of the road and he isn't. He's about as middle of the road as Genghis Khan. Or Bernie Sanders, his hero. Bernie! You! Hello, Bernie! Yes, yeah. Anyway, we're gonna have a lot of fun with Justin here. Hey, Justin, I got a question for you. It's a question I should have asked you when I got this. Justin believes in the Mueller investigation. He's on. If you haven't read all 400 pages of that fiction, well, you don't know anything. Well, let me ask you something, Justin. Over 2 years of investigation. Two things. At the heart of it were the DNC servers. Okay. Why were they never examined? Why were they never turned over for examination? You got an answer for me that one, Justin? And then your hero, Mueller, well, he brought up Assange and WikiLeaks in that 9-minute, 45-second bullcrap statement he made. Well, that's another thing that's always puzzled me, Why didn't he ever question Julian Assange? This whole investigation could have been over in a matter of, a few minutes. All they do is ask her a question to Julian Assange. Where'd you get the information? So why didn't he do that? Huh? NPR didn't tell you that one, did they? They didn't stuff your little head with that talking point, did they? Justin doesn't have an original thought. He only knows what they tell him. All right, if you like this one, you know what to do. You'll like it. If you care, you share. If you can, you support me. And I'll see you on the flip side.
Government and the Chinese people.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah, big difference. Huge difference. But, yeah, no fan of the Chinese government for sure.
Well, indeed, and of course, I know we just had the celebration or anniversary of Tiananmen Square. Most of that's been forgotten because they don't publicize it over there. It's like
Except in Hong Kong.
Say what?
Except in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
For now.
Indeed. Yeah.
For now, until what seems like the inevitable might end up happening. But the protesters are really encouraging over there. They're very organized and they're very smart about how they're going about it. They're just not aimlessly protesting. They go out well equipped. They know what they're doing. They're equipped. They have little groups that are out there when the cops are throwing tear gas at them. They're putting out the tear gas grenades before they can even go off. Stuff like that. So they're very well organized and they're getting their message out there.
Good. So do you find a vibrant democracy movement in the Chinese?
No, I think that they're like most Americans. Most Americans are ignorant of what's going on in the world around them, and I think the Chinese are largely the same. But yes, there's people who are.
Yeah.
But I think in Hong Kong, yes, of course. But in China as a whole,
Yeah, well, it's always a small group of dedicated people that change the course of history. Most people are not involved and just,
it's give and take. I don't know. If I was there more, I might be able to say. I know that the people that I know from China are all they prize those things, but they also know that they aren't organized to be able to do anything about it. And that's the brilliance of the Chinese government, is they're able to separate people enough, people who can actually make change. But there's plenty of lawyers and stuff in China that are out there trying to do something and make a difference, but they tend to go missing.
There's a lot of control.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of control over there. Trying to get some of that control over here, they're using the same technological, information claws into us. But we're saying, you have Microsoft over there and Google and everybody, and they're trying to implement the same China-style social justice scores.
Yeah, the social scores. I know exactly what you're talking about. That's terrifying to me.
Yeah, and they're trying to implement that here. You can see it now with Google. Just the censorship.
Yeah.
They're hate speech. What the hell is that? Taking people down for hate speech and.
I would venture to say Facebook has a right to do that, and YouTube has a right to do that, because they're private companies still.
Well, in that case, does AT&T have a right to discontinue your service for what you say over the phone?
No, but they also don't do that.
Yes, they do. As a matter of fact, they've done it to me. As a matter of fact, they did it to Alex Jones. As a matter of fact, they did it to...
I would do it to Alex Jones, too. He's a hate monger, and he's a conspiracy theorist, and that's about it.
Excuse me, but the First Amendment specifically protects speech you don't like. It isn't there for speech you like.
And I agree with that. And I think he should have the right to believe whatever he wants to believe, and he should have the right to say whatever he wants to say. But when you're using a private platform, they have a right to do
No, they advertise themselves as a public forum. That's what they advertise themselves as. So they advertise in public, and you can't say, well, start your own Facebook account, or go to another platform. Where do you go?
You go
Many people make
like they did. You can.
Do you know what that would take?
Yes, a lot of dedication. Yes.
About the dedication, we're talking about billions of dollars. You just don't start another.
When Facebook first started, it did not have.
And when it first started, but you're asking the impossible.
When you look at guys like Alex Jones, there's plenty of people who share his views. 4chan has taken off with stuff like that.
But they've strangled him being able to do business. In other words,
on their platforms.
No, look, PayPal refuses to accept payments.
So a private company.
Again, what you're arguing here is precisely what the Chinese government does with people they don't like. They start strangling off their business.
The difference, though, but here's the difference.
There is no difference in this respect. When you start using companies, private organizations, to strangle people who have dissonant views.
So here's where I disagree with you. I don't think that you seem like you think there's an entity behind these organizations doing so. I don't believe that. I don't see any evidence for that. I see private companies, and
So in other words, why is it all right of center then? They took down Gavin McInnes. They took down.
But let's be honest. Let's not call Alex Jones and Gavin McInnes. Let's not call them right of center. Let's call them far right, because that's what they are.
Who gives a shit? They got the right to say what they want to say. You have the right to say what you want to say.
Agreed.
So somebody arbitrarily knocks you off of being able not to do business, just go somewhere else. Where? If you get knocked off of YouTube, where do you go? BitChute? Who the hell goes to BitChute? Vimeo? Who the hell goes to Vimeo?
Oh, I know loads of folks on Vimeo.
Yeah, but they're nowhere near the behemoth that YouTube is.
Sure, but even then, that's just a corporation. They have a right to do that.
I think you're being completely disingenuous. I think you're falling right into exactly what the Chinese government does to dissidents, and then they say, well, you can always...
You're assuming there's an entity behind these organizations organizing what they're doing.
There is.
No, there's not.
There's not a deep state.
Yes and no. I don't think that there's a deep state in the sense that you probably do. I don't know your beliefs, so I don't want to assume what you believe, but no, I don't believe there's some super duper deep state behind everything organizing all of these.
Really? Okay, so there is not a professor from Berkeley who wrote a book, say American Deep State, and chronicalized it. There's not. I mean, I would beg you to watch. Are you familiar with Procter & Gamble?
With who?
Procter & Gamble.
Yes, sure.
Okay. Foster Gamble, heir to that vast fortune, was groomed to be a top 0.0000001%. Has an epiphany as a young man and goes, I am surrounded by psychopaths and sociopaths that want to rule the world. So he breaks from the elitist agenda. He makes this documentary called Thrive, Thrive. I recommend you watch it. In there he exposes government cover-ups and controls. He shows, in a pyramid fashion, the oligarchs at the top, the international bankers and the rulers that truly own and rule everything. Underneath them, the international bankers. Underneath that, of course, you got the international corporations. Underneath that, you have the governments that they own, and underneath that, you got the military, and then the bottom is us.
Yeah,
and it shows.
Disagree with you.
It shows through how the elites at the very top rule through ownership, intimidation, fear, blackmail, murder, you name it.
Yeah,
ownership of the media's, ownership of entertainment, ownership of publication companies, forming public opinion.
So would you agree that Fox News is part of that, or is Fox News separate from that?
Right there.
So you think Fox News is just as much owned by?
Absolutely. Anytime you take commercial money, and that's the deal. Here's it, and then we go right to Alex Jones. When you take commercial money, you are beholden to that entity. I mean, if pharmaceutical companies come out with a vaccine that kills several thousand people, half of the commercials in Fox are pharmaceutical companies. Do you think they're really going to give them an honest reporting? No, they won't. They'll probably hide it, bury it, whatever. Now, Alex Jones sells his own products. I use them religiously. I love them. They're top of the line. He sells his own products.
How do you feel about Alex Jones saying things like trying to say that Sandy Hook was a hoax?
Again, he's got the right to say whatever he wants. He's got the right, whether right or wrong.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the credibility of an individual.
That doesn't, again,
so
it doesn't make whether its credibility is right or wrong.
Let's not yell. If you yell, I have to go because it'll make my girlfriend mad because I told her I wouldn't engage you in conversation. But not because she just doesn't like when I have political conversations. It's just her prerogative. But as an individual, I've watched Alex Jones plenty. I just think he's a crackpot. And it's not because someone told me to feel that way. It's because I watched him and that's the opinion.
But you're right. But you have no right to silence him. And I don't give a crap what he says.
But
he can say,
to silence him at all.
Blue aliens pop out his ass. He has the right to say that. It could be right or wrong.
Certainly he does. And the moment that someone wants to lock him up for it, I will stand against whoever's trying to lock him up for it.
Well, they're trying to do that now. Matter of fact, I read an article this morning. It was on Drudge, where Alex Jones is offering a $1 million reward for people that placed child porn on his servers. So they constantly try to bring this man down because he's not beholden to any commercial interest. He can go out.
Now let me ask you this: what evidence did you see, or did he just say that on his podcast or his video cast? Did he just say that?
No, there's a government investigation into this. So they found the child porn on there, and so there's a government investigation into it. who placed these things on there. So there's an ongoing investigation
So
on
the
this.
deep state government put it on there.
Oh, they are
And now
constantly
they're
on him.
investigating to advocate him? Is that what you're saying?
Who put?
Or are they trying to investigate so they're going to find that they put it on there?
They're going to try. Who put that child porn on there?
And what are they going to find?
Was it Alex Jones, or did it come from an outside entity? Now, Alex Jones has offered a $1 million award, saying, I want you for the reward to find out who put those things on his server.
So he probably did it. I mean, just being honest. I don't know. I'm not going to say.
Why would he?
But even then, so
What proof do you ever have that he was ever into child porn?
What proof do you have that he wasn't?
Well, that again is communist thinking. Right there's communist.
No, it's not. I'm not.
Yes,
saying,
it is. It's
no,
sort of like that's
hold on,
Russian.
Hold on.
That's sort of like show me the man and I'll show you the crime.
Has anyone said, "Oh wow, look, we found this on his server"?
You got to
put him in
have.
jail. Is he going to jail for it?
They are constantly.
Or is there an investigation going in
They
to
are
see who
constantly got frivolous lawsuits against this man because that's another way they try to quell people that tell the truth. I mean, give me another for instance.
Sure.
Tommy Robinson.
I don't know Tommy Robertson.
Tommy Robinson out of the UK, who is started out in Luton, reporting on the how the influx of the mass immigration into his country from the Muslims were changing his neighborhood, his city, and his country. Because they were speaking from the street, just honestly, of course over there they're even more repressive with free speech than we are here. The government started coming down on him, saying, "Well, you're being, Islamophobic or whatever." Right? So they started making up charges on him and just, doing whatever they could to repress him. To the point where they throw him in jail for frivolous charges and whatnot. He becomes more and more popular. Well, why is the government doing that to him? You see, I mean, he just started on the street talking the truth, taking contributions of people, say this is what I'm doing.
Like I said, I don't know who this person is, and I don't know the situation, so I can't speak to it.
Well, it goes to the same thing. I mean, Alex Jones just started out 25 years ago as, talking, starting his radio program and taking contributions and then selling products, his own products. And as he would, because again, mention things they won't. Give me, for instance, when was the last time you ever heard any of these NPR or any of them mention 9/11? The truth of 9/11.
Actually, I heard NPR mention 9/11 pretty recently.
Yeah, but they don't tell you the truth about it. They don't bring up, the evidence that it was an inside job. They will be like, if they mention it all, well, that's the conspiracy theory. I have met one of the originators of architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth out here. Now, if you're not familiar with who they are, there are over 3,000.
I've read some of their stuff, seeing as I've read into that conspiracy theory.
Yeah, there are over 3,000 architects and engineers, some of them the best in the world, that have studied the collapse of those buildings and put their names on the paper, so, jeopardizing their reputations, their businesses, their lives, right? Saying those buildings came down by controlled demolition. Mm-hmm. So there's ample evidence, just physically, without getting into the political aspect of it, that we were not told the truth about this. Ample evidence. Physical, ample evidence.
I don't know, man. I've read that evidence, and I don't. Now, mind you, I'm also not an architect, so I don't have. Would I put it past the government to do that? No, absolutely
Well,
not.
then again, I mean, I'll give you you can go to Architects and Engineers. On this flyer right here, there's questions. I've spoken to many survivors out here that have told me stories that never appeared on the news of anomalies that just can't be answered. I mean, right here is 118 firemen that testified to explosives going off all around them that day. That's on video evidence, right?
One of my friends, one of my very good friend's fathers was one of those firemen in the building almost immediately after the plane hit.
Yeah.
And he doesn't attest to anything like that.
Yeah, well, again, 118 of them have.
He was one of the firemen who were closest, because he was one of the first arrivals who got closest up to the building before.
Again, 118 of them have.
And these were the men who were there closest They were the earliest.
You
call.
can see their videos. You can see them testifying for this.
But I don't.
You can see them testifying this. So again, and then just a physical evidence. I mean, we're talking.
So what about this? What about the fact that Donald Trump just recently? Now, look, I'm not a Democrat by any stretch of the imagination. I would definitely call myself an independent. I don't really like anybody on either side. But what about the fact that Donald Trump just openly said he has no problem with getting aid from a foreign government? Especially now we have evidence. And
information, he said information.
That's a foreign government.
What does the CIA do?
Not give information
what did Adam Schiff do when he accepted a phone call from a guy that was posing as a Russian? That and this is on tape. You can go to you can get on YouTube and listen to this. Where Adam Schiff, and it was a joke. It was a prank call, and this guy's called up Adam Schiff's office and says, "Hey, we have naked pictures of Donald Trump with prostitutes. We want to give them to you." Adam Schiff gets online, so you go, "What?"
So was this during the 2016 election?
Yes. So, Adam Schiff's going, "Whoa, please leave your contact. We want to get in touch with you. We have this information."
Like I said, I don't know anything about what you're talking about.
Well,
I'll look it up.
You can look it up. And then let's take a look at the...
If Adam Schiff did that, wrong, 100%.
Why?
Because it's wrong.
What's wrong about it?
Because first off, because just as a logical term, he's taking a phone call and just assuming it's true instead of vetting it.
Why shouldn't you at least listen? I mean, then decide.
Sure, you can listen,
yeah.
But then you should report it to the authorities.
It depends on what that said.
Especially if it's an attempt to interfere in a democratic election in our country.
Well, then why didn't Adam Schiff do that? And why isn't there any scrutiny on him?
There should be. Like I said, I don't know.
Why isn't there any scrutiny on Clinton, who's paid Fusion GPS and Steele that got the information? Why is there not any scrutiny
of the GOP that started the Fusion GPS document?
But they turned it over. There was nothing there, and they said there's nothing here, and they turned it over, and then
but they still started it. And they
but Clinton paid Fusion GPS. The GOP didn't. Who paid Steele to get the information from where? Russian agents.
Sure.
All right.
Hillary
so
Clinton
why isn't she under scrutiny? Why isn't she?
Because she's part of the establishment. That's why.
So then that's the deep state, isn't it?
No, I wouldn't argue that. She's part of. I don't see it the way you do. I don't see it as this really well put together group. I see it as a bunch of people with a bunch of different interests, all trying to protect their wealthy interests.
Isn't that the deep state? That's pretty much the definition of the deep state.
Where you and I would probably definitely agree is that there is a wealthy elite, especially in our country and across the world, but let's focus on our country. I can't save the whole world. I can't advocate for the whole world, that are protecting their interests at the cost of our interests. The people of this country, most of the middle class, the poor. Mm-hmm. And I'm all for...
That sounds like the deep state to me. Are you familiar with the Bilderberg Group?
Yeah, sure.
What are they?
They're part of a wealthy group that is trying to protect their interests.
And that's not a deep state.
Just like that man right there.
How's that?
Donald Trump.
As a matter of fact, I just read the chapter in this book, Secret Empires, on the Trump family.
And what sources do they go back to? What sources do they draw?
This is Peter Schweitzer, who's arguably one of the best investigative journalists we have. And he brings up...
But why should I... But hold on, before you bring up information out of that book, because I've seen that book at Barnes & Noble plenty, why should I think anything of that book? What information... As individuals, right now we're individuals. We're not Peter Schweitzer, we're not anybody else. We're trying to come to...
Well, that's your right. You got to read the book and decide for yourself whether it's got any validity or not. I mean, who are you to do? I mean, that's just like you saying, before, whether, it's either this or it's either that. We don't know. Well, you don't know until you read the damn book.
Sure,
you don't know until you see the evidence of Adam Schiff going, oh, yeah, send me the information.
But look, if I give you a list of information right now and tell you to go check out all of it, which I'm not going to do because I know you don't have time for that. I'm sure you have a life and you're busy. I'm not going to go read that book. I don't have time. Now, do I look at other sources? Well, if there's a source list in that book at the end of that book, sure, then I could sit down and I could take a picture and I could look at those sources and I can summarize and read those sources. That's what my degree was in research. That's what I did, is research.
Good.
So, more than willing to do something like that. But what I'm asking is, what do you know of his sources?
The fact that this man is
Because I've probably read just as many valid sources that say that man right there is making money off of his presidency. I know for a fact that man has lied over and over and over while he's been in office.
Well, according to the chapter I just read on his family, he has divested himself from all of it, putting it in a blind trust. But he still owns. But here's the difference between what Donald Trump
so when
did
his presidency ends in
if you allow me to finish.
Okay, I apologize.
With the difference between what Donald Trump did as opposed to what Vice President Biden did when his son had a $1.5 billion deal with China. That's called princelings. He divested himself from his son, but his son made the deal, so he cannot be scrutinized. That deal cannot be scrutinized. It does not fall under the purview of us being able to look into it. Donald Trump, on the other hand, on the deal of transparency, still owns his properties. He put them in a blind trust, which means that we can investigate him. Everything has to be full disclosure, which he's all for. He puts it out there every year. This is where the money.
Why does he lie so much about his connections to Russia?
What lies?
He lied left and right. We now know there was a Moscow deal for a Moscow tower. He said he had never.
He never lied about it. He's always talking openly about that.
He openly said that he never ever had met Russia, had no dealings with Russia, said none of his money came from Russia. I heard it out of
his money did come from Russia.
It did come from Russia. We also have video of his son
but the deal fell through.
Right before that
deal never happened.
Hold on. Saying out of Donald Trump Jr. Yeah, he's brown-haired one. Yeah, Eric Trump is the other one. So I mix them up sometimes. But we have video of Donald Trump Jr. just a year before.
We're talking about a man.
Hold on. Just a year. I let you finish. Let me finish. Just a year before that, saying that an abnormal amount of their money came out of Russia, that their assets were in Russia. He said there was no Trump-Moscow deal. He said there was no Moscow tower and Trump deal. He said that very clearly.
All what you say is true. Why isn't he being impeached?
I have my own opinions about that. I don't know that that's...
I mean, considering the amount of push against him, why isn't he being impeached?
I think...
And then you were talking about a man who is indeed around the world in investments. He never disputes that. No one can dispute that.
But he lied particularly about the ones that were in Russia.
Again, why isn't he being impeached then?
Because that's not an impeachable offense. In the same way that we know from the
matter of fact, there's a definite act against that. There is a definite act against.
Hold on. There was definitely no. He would have to have had a conspiracy with the Russians that revolve around the Moscow. No, there would have to be an exchange of money. There would have to be a conspiracy where he, with the Russian government, with the Russian government officials, with people in the Kremlin, made a deal, which never happened. It fell short of that. But we do know collusion, again, is not a legal term. If you set that as your goal of trying to find the man guilty, you won't be able to, because collusion is not a legal term. Collusion is an act that is carried out, which we now know he did carry out. I'm not against Donald Trump because I'm against Republicans. I've voted Republican before. I'd vote Republican again if it came down to it. Right? Personally, and maybe you'll want to crucify me for this, I like Bernie Sanders. That's fine. I know you'll just say he's a socialist and that's that.
Mr. Let them vote from prison?
Yeah, I don't agree with him on that. But the difference is I don't have to agree with everything that a politician does.
The guy who got a lot of his talking points directly out of Chairman Mao's Little Red Book?
Sure, I don't know anything about that, but I know what he's saying today, and I know what he's
do some research on that. I did.
Sure.
A guy that honeymooned in Moscow. Yeah.
Wait. So, what's wrong with him being in Moscow?
He praised him. He praised their political system, and he praised Venezuela. He praised
Putin. This man praises Putin all the time, even though all of our intelligence agencies know for a fact and have given hard evidence.
I just spoke to a couple of Russians that worked at the university.
Can I finish? Would it be okay if I finish? Would that be all right? So we know for a fact that the Russians interfered in our election. We know that we have proof.
With what? With what?
With what?
Yeah.
Did you? So you haven't read the Mueller report, I take it.
Yeah, and they came up with $5,000 worth of Facebook ads.
Have you read 400? Yes, and that's enough to. Have you
that
seen
were in Russian?
Look.
I just spoke to two Russians. I just spoke. Before I spoke to you, I spoke to people who work at a university in Texas.
As American citizens.
Work at a university in Texas that were Russian. They came from Russia. They work in a Texas university. So they're, like you, very learned people. Laughed at the aspect that the Russians, who have an economy the size of what, I don't know, Michigan, that they could possibly, and exactly how does $5,000 worth of Facebook ads affect an election? How does that do? How does that work? Especially when they were in Russian.
They weren't in Russian, and
hell they weren't.
Hold on. Since I can tell you haven't read the Mueller report, we also know for a fact.
No collusion, no cover-up.
Hold on, collusion, much collusion. Very much collusion. Definitely a cover-up. Trying to hide these connections.
Wait, Mueller himself said there was no collusion and no cover-up.
He said no conspiracy, sir. You should have read the Mueller report. No conspiracy. Conspiracy and collusion are two
separate. Then that's no crime. What's the problem?
So, let me ask you this. Do you think a president should be...
What's the problem?
Hold on. Do you think a president should be held to a higher standard?
They are.
No. Well, he's not being held to a higher standard.
Oh.
We know this man openly was willing
They don't go overboard. These guys don't go overboard scrutinizing everything he does.
I don't listen to these people. I don't listen to these people. I sometimes listen to these people. I don't listen to these people. I don't listen to these people. I sometimes listen to these people. I sometimes listen to these people. I do not listen to these people. I listen to these for local news stuff. Stories on prison, stuff like that. I don't listen to Fox News. I don't even know who these people are. I don't like CNN at all. CNN is Fox on the other side. I don't listen to any of these people. I watch some HBO shows, but I don't watch any of their political stuff. Bill Maher's a little bit too much of a heavy-handed and heavy-fisted person for me. I do like Disney movies. I don't like all Disney movies. So I don't get my information from these people. Have you read the Mueller report? You sat down with a copy?
I've read excerpts. I'm not going to sit down and read 400 pages of it because I've talked to a guy who recently just read the whole damn thing, who's very good at analyzing. And he said, and he admitted, look, 60% of it was political or legal jargon that was really confusing. So the 40% that I understood was bullshit.
So this guy didn't understand.
Look for one.
This guy didn't understand 50% of it.
Yeah, but it's starting out. You understand the thing, which is being investigated by Barr right now, and Durham, which is being investigated by Barr and Durham, is the start of this entire thing. They knew at the beginning because even Strzok himself says there's no there. He says there's nothing here. So they knew at the beginning there was nothing there. So they kept this thing going purely on...
Except that if this man that you're getting your information from, if he had actually read the Mueller report, he'd realize they discovered quite a bit. So what you're saying with the Russians only posting Facebook stuff in Russian, which never occurred...
Believe me, I hope they keep on pursuing it. I hope they keep on pursuing it because the more they do, the more they dig themselves in a deep hole that they're digging themselves in, because they are just making people, even liberals I'm talking to on here, are pissed off saying, when did they ever govern? When are these people going to get away from Trump and start actually doing something that matters to me? I don't care about the Russian collusion thing. I'm talking to liberals that are saying that. So, you got these maniacs.
Earlier you said to me, though, you said that there's always a small group of people who start a revolution.
A small group of dedicated people that change the course of history.
A revolution, of course. Revolution that change the course of history. They cause something to happen.
Yeah.
Of course a majority of people don't care, because a majority of people don't think past how much money can I make off of this. How much money, how am I going to feed my family? I don't blame them.
But a good many of those people are influenced by what? The same things. At least you're, smart enough to be analytic in the things you're looking at.
Yeah.
Most people are just taking a lot of what they say off of face value. When I'm out here talking to a lot of people, it's also, this is like talking points. It's like, they're like regurgitating things that they are hearing on there. If I ask them any questions behind what they say, they are blank. It's like, oh, you're a racist, and they walk away. So, I don't get this kind of conversation a lot from, people that are the...
I lean left. You can say I lean left. I do lean left.
Gee, Bernie Sanders. I'm not surprised to hear that. Again, and I say, look, when I started out back in the day, I was a Northeastern, blue-collar, working-class liberal. And then a hippie, of course, and it was all about against the war and free speech. Well, now I've seen the divides happen so much where the left me. They're gone.
So is the right.
Not so much. I mean, I don't see the right stifling free speech the way the left is now.
I do. I see them, and I also see them. Hold on. And I also see the right. I'm getting to it. I also see the right causing people to not be able to vote, purging voter rolls. Did you study the governor election in Georgia at all? Did you follow it closely between Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp?
Why not have? ID voting. What's wrong with that?
That's not what occurred. People who did have IDs, people who were already registered to vote, were purged from the rolls. Mostly
she
people
lost by 50,000 votes.
She came within striking distance.
50,000 votes.
Look at it in percentages. Look at it in percentages. In percentages, she had 48 point something. She lost.
And you really want that screaming Mimi as and there as opposed to the one that's in there now?
Why is she screaming Mimi?
Because she won't shut up about it. She
yes,
just
she
keeps
has.
on
She's
it.
moved on to other things.
The hell? She was just on the other day screaming about
it. But she was advocating for the fact that Brian Kemp purged voter rolls. Which occurred. That did occur.
You're believing
and
a lot
it doesn't
of the
matter
wrong
if a white person did that, if a black person did that, if an Asian, Latino, it wouldn't matter who did it.
Now, I would go along with this with you. We definitely need election reform because after the 2000 debacle, I mean, that was number one on the plate, if you remember the hanging chads and all that bullshit. And that was like very up in front, right? Well, of course, 9/11 took that off the front burner and you disappear that. But I mean, there was a black guy who had this system of voting, a voting machine and everything. It was very cool. I mean, it was simple. You go in, you would, you had your ID, blah blah blah. You would get a receipt. So if there was any question about the votes, you could bring that receipt back, and this is, who I voted for. On the way to testify to Congress, he was murdered. So, there's an old saying, voting can change things and make it illegal. So
why do you assume that it was someone on the left who murdered him?
Well, there's, again, it's right and left. I mean, with gerrymandering and everything else, there is that.
So we need to reform that so that people like you and I
we need election reform without a doubt. We need voter reform. So there's something we agree on. Good. But they, again, for Stacey Adams, I don't believe
Stacey Abrams.
And one of the things I like being out here, I speak to a lot of people. I've spoken to people that are election people that work in the election business about the security methods, what goes down, what needs to be done, what reforms would you take. So I'm schooled in this also, and I've listened to them tell me what the bad, what the good is that. For one, we need to get rid of e-voting. Voting on electronic voting machines is the worst thing in the world.
I think that's what makes it
easiest. They can be manipulated, just by going in and punching a program and you can flip the election, easily.
In Georgia, were you aware that these were mostly black polling places, were in black communities, that there were missing power cords to voting machines? There were voting machines that were just out of date and malfunctioning, things like that. That occurred at my voting.
Yeah, that happened. Do you know who owns a majority of the e-voting machines, electronic voting machines?
In Georgia, it's the state.
No,
of
all across the country.
I don't know, but I'm not talking.
But let's talk across the country because it's important.
But that's just very general.
60% this is on record, are owned by Centera, which is a company started at all places in Venezuela. George Soros has a major ownership interest in. So here we have a major left-wing donor, operative, who has a major interest in 60% of our voting machines. You think that's a conflict of interest?
Sure. Again, this is very general, and that's why I wanted to talk about something specific that I actually know evidence about, that I know enough to speak about. I don't like to speak about things I don't know about. Hence why with China, I wasn't really willing to say very much, because I don't know all the details as much as I'd like to.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, sir.
What's your name?
Badass Uncle Sam.
Badass Uncle.
And on the back of this get out of jail free card from Hillary Clinton, you can go and see some of the other conversations I've had out here like this. I'd recommend looking more into the deep state, the tentacles of the Bilderberg Group, Bohemia Grove, more of the secret and semi-secret societies that, really are the deep state that control most of what we have. The CFR would be a good one.
Reptilians.
I don't know if I go that far. I do think there's a demonic spirit involved.
So I'm a secularist, so I definitely don't believe in demonic spirits or anything else. I think that sadly I'm not saying there's not a God. I don't know. I'm an agnostic at the end of the day. I don't know the answers to
that's pretty evident. I, on the other hand, have gone through the entire gamut, from going from being a Catholic to agnostic to atheist now to being a Christian.
I grew up Catholic and then I was again Christian.
So I am absolutely convinced now, just like Einstein was at the end of his life.
He was not. That's absolute absurdity. Einstein was not. We have a letter from Einstein years before his death where he made it very clear he did not believe in a personal God. He did believe in a...
Before his death, years before his death. Later on in his life, he was absolutely... There was quotes for it.
I love Albert Einstein quite a bit. I have read very much about his life. I'm very fascinated with his mind. That's absolute absurdity. It's like
I know from personal experience, and I can't infuse that into you,
of course,
that there is spiritual, demonic entities into this world and holy entities in this world, and other realms beyond the one we're seeing. I know this from personal experience, and it wasn't drug-induced. So
I used to be in a charismatic church, non-denominational charismatic, had connections to a lot of those big charismatic names. I believed all of those things also. And thank God for logic and reason being able to free me from having an illogical mind.
Yeah, well, again, you're a deitist then.
A deitist.
That's what mainly our founding fathers were.
Yes, no, I'm not.
They believed in a supreme being, but they believed human beings were on our own.
I would say maybe I'm an agnostic theist. Ultimately, I don't think you can. The way that I can know I'm standing here talking to you, I can't know that about God, whether there is or not. I think I lean towards some.
See, I can. I've got evidence of it, but I can't infuse that evidence into it.
It's not evidence.
Oh, yes, it is.
It's an opinion. I believe.
No, I've got physical evidence of it.
What physical evidence do you have?
It was a sight thing that happened, it was an experience that happened to me that I don't think you could.
But I think you're a smart enough man to know that you can hallucinate.
No, I wasn't hallucinating. Other people
I've definitely had situations, as I have had.
No, this wasn't hallucination. It was physical evidence that other people saw.
That's an argument for another day.
Indeed.
Cool. Uncle Sam, I hope you have a good day.
Yourself, sir.
Yep, have a good one.
So what did I tell you about this little guy, huh? Well, knowledge is a dangerous thing. I hope he does some investigation. I hope he does it, I hope he wakes up. Hope he actually does listen to the other side. Instead of the talking points. Mr. Talking Points. All right, pray for me out there, will you? God bless you.